Good evening, everyone, on the MYBC Consulting Facebook page. Welcome to another edition of the MYBC Virtual Bookstore Authors Series. It's, the little show that I created at the end of 2020 to bring together those that have taken pen to paper or illustrated a book or a book agent to give you guys out there on my Facebook page the opportunity to learn through the experiences of other people. Couple of little shout outs right now. I'd like to shout out that all of you that are following me. This past week I hit 2,001 followers out there. So thank you so much for following along. Yeah, my journey with MYBC Consulting. You really did move your bum chum and start to follow me. So tonight I am super duper elated and delighted to have I'm going to call her an alumni of the Fraser Valley Continuing Education, my Facebook class that she took about a month and a bit ago, became a client, and we did a little bit of work together to get her book out there. So welcome, Pauline Buck.
Thank you. Really glad to be here, Jeanette.
I'm glad we got the memo to wear our red tonight.
Well, it is Christmas.
Yes, it's okay to break out the red. Yep. So Pauline, can you share with everybody a little bit about, I'm going to say her story of who you are and where do you live and all the rest of that good stuff?
Well, I live in Abbotsford and I've been here for about 5 years. And before that, I was in Aldergrove for 7 years. And before that, I was in Vancouver. And I moved out to the Fraser Valley about 4 years before I retired, which was 10 years ago. I've been retired for 10 years because my husband and I lived in Vancouver and my husband was ill. He had dementia and I knew I needed some help and my family was in Aldergrove. So I thought, well, if I'm half as smart as I like to think I am, I'd better get out there and get near the family because we're going to need. And what happened was of the most interesting 7 years because, Bill's dementia, of course, we all, have heard about dementia or you possibly know somebody and, they deteriorate, which is really, really quite sad, actually. But while the dementia was happening, we moved to a hobby farm. Now, we are two city slickers. What we know about farming, you can write on the head of a pin. But as it happens, the family that's there to help us lives on a hobby farm, okay. And on their street was a farm for sale. So we bought it. We sold our apartment and we bought this farm. So then while I was, looking after Bill and learning about dementia and realizing that coming down the pike, things were not going to be terrific. And then I was going to be on my own. We were farming and we were playing with chickens and we had horses and we had llamas. And so it was the most interesting dichotomy. This part of my life, well, that was kind of sad. This part of my life, that was fun. So there we go. So I thought, this is insane. I need to write this down. This is a book. So I wrote.
Oh my gosh! I'm gonna pause you there because, as any good interviewer will say, there's a lot of stuff for me to unpack thus far with what you've shared with me. First of all, I want to recognize the fact that you bought the farm while you were still living, because that's like an analogy for somebody who's passed away.
He bought the farm. That means he died.
Right, but you chose to come from the city and buy the farm so you could still live with whatever was going to present itself for the 7 years with your husband going through dementia, with the learnings of which chickens. So at one time, how many chickens, Pauline, did you have on your farm?
We had 50.
Okay, well, that's a lot of chickens. Okay, how many roosters? How many roosters? How many roosters did you have?
None. Well, that's good. We for a while we had one rooster. This is okay. Because someone said we should, so we did. What did we know? The chickens didn't like him, and they picked on him, and he had his tail feathers were all wrecked and yucky looking. And I thought, this must be what henpecked is. So we got rid of the rooster. We gave him to another farm. We didn't need a rooster because we weren't planning on fertilizing the eggs and making more chickens.
Right.
There you go.
That's the reason why I ask you, because I live here on a hobby farm in Aldergrove, as you know, and one of the families that lives here on the farm has got chickens right out that window, and we have about 9 roosters, and now
Oh,
2 goats, 2 small goats, baby goats out the back, and they're just hilarious to watch. So then you said you had the evolution, you had llamas. So how do you go from little chickens to lay some eggs to llamas?
well, my daughter, who her farm is down the street, she wanted llamas because she thought it would be really cool to groom them and to take their wool and to weave it. And I mean, my daughter really embraced farm life. So we got 2 llamas, which turned out to be excellent because llamas keep the coyotes away from the chickens.
Oh.
And there was behind our property there was like woods, and in the woods there were coyotes, and so sometimes they came out at night and they crossed across our property. They didn't go anywhere near our chicken coop, but our neighbors across the street, they lost almost their whole flock in 3 nights because they didn't have llamas.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So now this is paralleling your husband,
yes,
Bill,
yes,
going through dementia.
yes.
How old was he when he had his diagnosis of dementia, Pauline?
He was 72.
Okay. So now from that journey now with him, how did you balance the two, the learning about being the farmer as well as the learning about being a caregiver for a husband that has dementia?
Yes, yes. Well, I had some support from the Alzheimer's Society, and they have chapters out here, of course. We were very fortunate that we got a fabulous GP, family physician. And as soon as we moved out here, he was recommended to us. We went to see him, and he was the one that actually diagnosed Bill. I didn't realize when we moved out here that he actually had dementia, but I knew he had something because he suddenly was not Bill. He suddenly was somebody else. So managing it, the first couple of years were manageable. I was still working. I was still driving into to Burnaby and back. And he was okay. He couldn't be left alone for too long because we were never really sure if he was going to roam away or something. But my daughter was down the street, so that was very helpful. And it wasn't until about year 3 that his symptoms really started to materialize, and it was questionable. Some days he knew who I was, some days he didn't. Some days he understood what was going on, some days he didn't. But fortunately, physically, he was just excellent because he was in good physical shape when all this started. So, so he wasn't frail or that sort of thing. And also some patients with dementia, because there's different types of dementia, some turn nasty, or their personality just turns upside down and they become kind of scary. You think, my gosh, they might hit me. That was not it. Bill started life nice man, kind. He stayed that way. The only huge difference in his personality is he stopped talking, and he got quieter and quieter and quieter. And this in itself was unusual because Bill was a professional actor. He was on the stage, he was on television, he was in movies. He had a voice. They used to call him the pipes. Here come the pipes. He wasn't talking, or he was talking like this. And what on earth is this? And that's how it was the last year and a half. He just wasn't talking.
Wow. And that spurred you, as you mentioned earlier, you got to write this stuff down. So that takes you to your experiences writing it down. So let's go to the name of your book And I love the subtitle to your book. And I really want to dig into why the subtitle of the book. So show your book. This is the time for show and tell.
Show and tell shit. Oh, it looks backwards on my screen. Is it?
No, it's forward on mine, so it's okay.
Good. The book is called Winging It. A story of love, loss, and 50 chickens. And of course, the title Winging It is a pun.
Right.
Because of all the chickens, because we had so much fun with it. But also I realized when the book was finished and it was time to give it a name, and I looked at the whole book and everything that was in it, and I thought, Crumb, you're making it up as you go along. I mean, caregiving doesn't come with an instruction sheet, and neither does being a newbie farmer. You're making it up. You're winging it. So basically that works, winging it.
So at this time, I'd love for you to read the back of your book. There's so many times, you know, there's I think it's a phrase of don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah. I really believe that people need to start turning books over in a bookstore. And I'm going to have now the pleasure of having the author read the back of the book, please.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. It says, most people, when they're 4 years away from retirement, start downsizing. Not Pauline and Bill, they upsized. In August 2008, they moved from a 1,600 square foot urban condo to a 3,000 square foot split level house on a 5-acre hobby farm, 40 miles east. Pauline committed to a 1-hour commute to work, and the couple took on a mortgage. Their friends thought they were crazy. No wonder. What Pauline and Bill knew about farm life could have been written on the head of a pin, but they did it anyway. They had to. Bill had dementia, and Pauline knew she would need help down the road. They moved to be close to their daughter and her young family, who also lived on a farm. And that's when the fun began, as two aging city slickers learned how to bale hay, collect eggs from a chicken coop, and clean out horse stalls. Oh yeah, did I tell you we had horses too?
Oh my goodness.
No, they never dreamed they would develop in retirement. With rollicking humor, a sense of adventure, and a degree of poignancy. Winging It describes Pauline Buck's 10 years as a newbie farmer, as she navigates her challenging role as a dementia caregiver and seeks purpose in the third act of her life.
So now, seeking purpose, there's almost 3 things here that are now coming to light. There's the purpose of moving out to the farm and being that late in life farmer, as you said, being that caregiver, and now wanting to take pen to paper to share the story. So now you've got that author hat on.
Yeah.
What did that journey look like for you? How long did it take you to take that first and I bought the farm to the end result of you getting your book published?
When it first started, when Bill and I first moved to the farm, and our friends all thought we were crazy, I was emailing them and telling them this and telling them that. And then I thought, this is a lot of work. So I started a blog. So our farm adventures were blogged, and people followed the blog. And then, of course, as Bill's dementia increased and the caregiving started to take over a bit more from Aren't the Chickens Cute, the blog changed its tone somewhat. And then when Bill passed away, the friends who had been following the blog said, you should put this all in a book. So I thought, whoa, that sounds simple. I'll just grab all of those blog entries, put them in pager, bing, 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 and bingo, I have a book. Well, of course, that's not how books happen. So I found an editor, got some advice, sent off all of these blogs and said, what do you think? And, the book took overall 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Well, part of it was difficult. Parts of it were very difficult. So I would rest from it. And then parts of it where I thought, oh, this isn't any good. I think I'll just throw it in the bottom drawer, and after I'm dead, my daughter can find it and read it. But my editor said, no, 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 keep going. So eventually, and she also gave me good advice, add more here, add more there, and yeah, which good editors do. So it turned into a finished manuscript, and that's how it became a book.
So from it's finished being edited, because that's the step, and now was the editor connected to the publisher, or did you have to go and find a publisher?
No, I decided I had done some research on how to get a publisher and how to get published and how to write
Okay.
a query letter and all of the requirements that are necessary to get a publisher. And I
Mhm,
realized that was going to take a fair amount of time. I
mhm,
mean, you have to identify who's a lodge, you need an agent, and then you need a publisher, and then should you actually get a publisher, then and they decide they want you, well, they'll put you in their catalog 3 years from now. And I thought,
Oh,
well, it takes a long time to get on their listing. And I thought, now just a minute, I'm pushing 75 years old. I'll be in the old folks home before this is done.
mhm,
I'm going to do it myself. So I started investigating self-publishing. And the editor did not come from, I self-published with Tellwell
okay,
Publishing. They're in Victoria.
mhm,
And I went that route. And that takes from beginning to end 6 months.
okay,
That was already an edited book. I mean, what I sent them was totally the finished product. Tellwell
mhm.
does provide editors, but mine had been completely edited.
Okay, so you're self-publishing with Tellwell.
Yeah.
What does that relationship look like? What like paint that picture for us
Yeah.
of you're going to publish through self-publishing, but you're working with a publisher.
Yes.
How did how did that relationship look?
How that works is your self-publishing company that you're working with provides for you absolutely everything that a traditional publisher does.
Okay.
I mean, so I had it edited myself, but then they do the cover design, they select the font inside, how big do you want the book to look, where do you want it distributed, all of that a publisher
Okay.
does. But when it's self-published, you pay for it yourself.
Okay.
Traditional publisher pays, covers all the costs. The advantage of self-publishing is you make more money when you're
Mhm.
selling them, because a traditional publisher, their percentage of sales, of course, is higher because they put out all this money to start with up front.
Right.
So, there are pros and cons to both. What I liked about the self-publishing was it was faster. And
Mm.
we spent 5 years writing this book. I wanted it out. So there we go. Actually, it's a year. What's the date today? December the 6th. It was published on December the 22nd last
Oh,
year.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Congratulations, almost a year anniversary for you.
yeah.
That's
Mhm,
that's that's
mhm.
that's incredible. I love for my authors to share the actual reality of it, because there's so many people that think it's like an overnight, it's pull the trigger here, pull the trigger there, and all of a sudden, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you see all the time, you see courses, oh, write your book over on the weekend. And I want people to get a truly good understanding, good picture, and also a sense of reality. Because when you take this idea or thought process, excuse me, to wanting to write a book, you've got to know fact. I'm all about, not fact, truth. Sometimes fact is stranger than fiction, but truth. So let's get into, for this last little bit, on who this book is for. Who is this book for? Because you decided to pull it together, to gift it, your story, out to the world. Who is this book for, Pauline? Who did you write the book for?
Initially, I wrote it for my friends, so they would know what we had gone through. I wrote it for my family because there were parts of the journey. I hate that word journey. There were parts of the journey that children don't understand. Adult
Mm.
children don't understand what you're going through. And sometimes it's really hard to tell them. And sometimes you don't want to tell them. But I wanted my family to understand some stuff. So that was the first reasons for the book. But as it was going through various edits and various processes, I realized it's also for other caregivers, well, primarily women, because mostly it's women do the caregiving for the most part, to see and get a sense of what someone else has gone through in the caregiving part. And in the book, there are also, I'm also very upfront about mistakes I made, winging it, making it up, making mistakes. And I'm getting some really interesting feedback from people who go, it's so honest, it's so upfront, it's so helpful. We felt really bad when we decided blah blah, but gee, you did it too. Others do it too. And so it's sort of morphed into well, as you know, on my website, there's comments from people who are relating to that. They go, oh yeah, the part about the chickens, yeah, that was funny, but they're really relating to the caregiving and the heartbreak. And I think too, the caregiving and the heartbreak works for more than just dementia. I mean, people are caregiving family members for all sorts of things.
Right. So I would love at this time for you to open up your book, go to a chapter that you feel speaks to you. I know all your chapters, because chapters are like children when you're putting together books, like your family story, that you've given it a title, or that you want to read, say, a paragraph out of one of your chapters that is quite poignant for you.
Oh dear, wasn't expecting this.
I told you I'm not your normal interview type person.
I noticed.
I love the title because there's so many times. I think I love it because there's been that phrase that has gone around that, make it till fake it until you make it. And that truly is not great advice. That winging it, to me, when I hear somebody says, well, I'm winging it, it means that they're still in motion. Like they're not standing still, they're winging it, they're learning it, they're flapping their wings, to me, they're at least adding some energy out to the world. So I love that title. And like I said before, having chickens behind me, I can totally appreciate when chickens are winging it outside as well.
I want to read, and I'm not sure if this is what you were looking for.
It's your time to share.
One of the most important parts of the book is the epilogue.
Okay.
Because it pulls it all together.
Beautiful. Please share.
Well, in my mind. But I certainly won't read the whole thing. But so this is the beginning of the epilogue, okay? 3 years after morphing into condo nanny. Oh yeah, I moved to a condo. I sold the farm and moved to a condo. So now I'm condo nanny. I occasionally get startled out of a deep sleep by a howling wind roaring through the trees just across from my back deck, or the pounding of rain on my patio furniture. Sometimes when this happens, my stomach muscles seize up and the worry synapses in my brain hit overdrive as they start running through the possible fallout from this storm. Will the new fence panels hold overnight? Did I shut the little door on the chicken coop? Will Sassy and Cassidy give me the evil eye in the morning when they discover Buck Lake is back? They're the horses. Then, a nanosecond after consciousness becomes reality, I realize I'm not on the farm anymore. The only harm this storm can cause would be to flatten the petunias that grace the entrance to my townhouse. But rolling over and snuggling down under my warm comforter, sleep eludes me. Memories in the darkest hour of the night stir up worrisome questions. This is hard for me to read. Did I do the right thing? Should we have moved from Vancouver? What would life have been like if we'd stayed? How would Bill have been if we hadn't moved to the farm? Did I do him any favors or myself? What would I be doing now? What am I doing now? With my eyes squeezed shut, I know deep within me that moving to the farm was the right thing to do. It gave me the proximity to caregiving help that I needed from family and provided a few fun and unique years in an exceptional environment. But still more questions niggle. Did I do things right? Did I look after Bill the best way possible? Did I handle family relations well? How's my third act going so far? What could I have done differently?
Love that. Love that. Thank you for sharing that vulnerability with us and with my viewers. This is going to be posted on Instagram and over on YouTube. And at this time, to wrap this up, is who are 3 people that you think this book would be a great gift for? Good stocking stuffer or to be put under the Christmas tree?
Other caregiving women who are in a caregiving situation. Also, I think people who suddenly, or maybe not so suddenly, find themselves alone.
Okay.
I mean, you go through the whole marriage thing and then the caregiving thing, and that's who you are. You're the caregiver. That title is gone now. So what are you? Now what am I going to do with myself? Who am I? And I think there's a fair amount in the book about that also. So, people who are, suddenly trying to figure out what their third act is, to coin Jane Fonda. And I guess maybe to adult children, maybe don't quite get it. What's mom complaining about now? She got good money for the damn farm, and she's living in this really cool condo. So what seems to be the problem?
I'm going to add 3 people that I believe would, after hearing your story and knowing about who you are, I'm going to say this book could be a good gift for someone who's going into social work to do with dementia. There's nothing better than learning and reading through a story than through textbooks and waiting for the tick boxes to happen with your patients or the people you're caregiving for. I'm also going to say that this book would be a great book for a farmer or a family that is choosing to buy a farm and stay there for a long, long, long time. And that's going to be their family legacy. So you can see how the whole farm life is going to be. And I'm also going to say this book is going to be fantastic for... I'm also going to loop in the men that are going through that caregiving role that they don't know what it looks like. And to have a woman guide you through it, through her story, is going to definitely benefit the journey, because the first part of that, your bottom tagline or the subtext, is about love, is a love story. So somebody who wants to know a very holistic love story when something comes into the family that you just don't know about what it's going to turn out to be, as long as you've got that love, everything will turn out okay. Everything will turn out okay. So my last question to you tonight, Pauline, is what are your words of wisdom to somebody out there who's thinking about writing a book?
Do it. Absolutely do it. For yourself, for your family, for your sense of accomplishment. Do it.
It must be quite the sense of accomplishment when you walk into a bookstore and there it is sitting on the shelf.
Well, the problem is, if you have self-published, your book is not in bookstores.
Oh, it's...
The problem is bookstores need to charge a fairly large commission. And so the books are now available like from Amazon or Indigo or Chapters or whatever. Online, it's print on demand.
Okay.
And so like at the moment, the books are selling on Amazon. I looked it up just yesterday for $25. So if a bookstore wants to stock them, they're going to contact Amazon and say, send it to the book. Then they're going to mark them up 40%. Now, I think it's a great book. I do not think this book is worth $35 to $40. I love my book. I wouldn't pay $40 for it. So it's just bookstores, it just doesn't work for them. With a traditional publisher, traditional publishers have a rate of selling to bookstores that self-publishing does not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a lot of books behind you. I'm sure that we'll make sure that we put below your website after this is done, as well as the link to purchase it on Amazon if you're watching from around the world, because I do have followers all over the world. So
Yeah.
you can get it delivered right to you. So thank you so much, Pauline, for joining me tonight on the MYBC Virtual Bookstore Author Series. I wish you a very Merry Christmas. And I always end this by saying, grab a book, grab your favorite beverage, snuggle into your favorite cozy place to read the book, put a good light over you because it is very dark these days, and take your mind, body, and soul to another place through the words written by somebody else. Thank you so much, everybody. And we will have an early edition next Tuesday it'll be 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Because the lady who's coming on next week, it's actually her birthday, and she's going to share a part of her birthday with me about a book that she released this year. So I'm excited to have her next Tuesday. So good night, everybody, and we'll see you again.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.